Okay, so let's move on with the fours of the Vera Sibilla. Before we start, somebody asked me in private which version of the deck this is. This is a 1850 something, I believe, 1852 version, one of the first. It was a numbered edition, so I don't know if you can find it online, maybe on eBay. And I also have a review of the deck on my website if you want to check it out. So let's move on with the four. We have the four, as usual, we're going to go through the cards and then we're going to see if there's a common theme running through them. So we have the Four of Hearts, which is the love card, the most popular card in the deck. And of course, it means love, good feelings, it means joy, it means that we are emotionally invested in something. So if it comes up in a question about, for instance, career, it could be a career that you love, that you're emotionally invested in. It could be also negative. If there are negative cards, you could be emotionally hurt by something that goes on in your work life, for instance. But in general, it's romantic love. And it represents a context in which the querent thrives because there are good feelings around him. So there are people who love him or her. Then we move on to the Four of Clubs, the friend card. So in Italian, it's actually the female friend. So amica, it's the female version of the word friend. And yeah, it represents friendship in general. It can be a court card, not a court card, a person card. It can represent a female friend or a female relative or a colleague, usually not a colleague as much as a friend or a relative. But its more general meaning is that of friendship, of help, of, as you can see in the symbolism, the young woman is inviting you to sit. So she's taking care of you. So yeah, it's a card of friendship and help. And it's a card of being in a context where we are amongst friends, where we are at ease. It is not as emotionally charged as the love card, but it's positive. Then we have the cat, the falsehood card. And of course, this is not an actual cat. It actually represents a demon. It's a demonic cat. And in this version, it's not clear, but usually the eyes of the cat are very demonic. So, of course, it represents falsehood, lies, and not being clear with somebody. But if I can find it, just a second. There it is. So these two cards are polar opposites. The dog card, the faithfulness card, represents all things that are as they seem. Okay, so there is no facade. Whereas the falsehood card represents facades. So something is not as it seems. And it doesn't have to be lies. You know, sometimes people send me readings and ask me if somebody's lying to them because the falsehood card came up in a reading. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could be, aside from the fact that it can be you being deceived about something, so being deluded. So it's also a card of delusion. It's a card of self-deceit, of not seeing things clearly, of mistakes. So, for instance, if you are submitting paperwork for something, there could be a mistake in the paperwork. And more generally, it represents negativity, a negative context, okay, where the querent lives or acts. So it could be a kind of enmity, of being enemies with somebody, not liking them. So this is a kind of dislike, okay? Somebody who has the falsehood card next to them could be disliking you, okay? And therefore they might be hiding their true feelings for you, which are negative. And broadly, it represents all situations, all contexts where the person finds themselves in negative surroundings, okay? And then finally, we move on to the Four of Spades, which is the sick person or the sick man or sickness. And of course, it's obvious what it means. Mostly, it's the card of bad health, so being ill. But the illness of the card can be metaphorical. So it represents all contexts and situations where the querent could become sick in the soul. So, for instance, a relationship could be sick because the feelings are not expressed in a healthy manner. And so, of course, the person could become sick. Or it could represent a work environment that is making the person sick. So, a sick context in that sense. And of course, sickness can also be metaphorical in another way. So, an object that is broken, a car breaking down, is a sick car, of course. So, generally speaking, the fours represent broad contexts in which the querent can find themselves in. So a very positive and loving and nurturing context, a context of friendship, of being supported, a negative context where there is dislike, there is a lack of clarity, where things are not as they seem, and so on. And this is a sick context. It's the worst kind, of course, because spades are the worst suit. So now let's move on to the reversed cards. The Four of Hearts reversed. So here we need to talk a little bit about it, because traditionally it's the card of vice. Vice, of course, of a let's say of an intimate nature. Okay, but traditionally it's also the card of homosexuality. Now you have to keep in mind that these traditional meanings go back to the 1800s. Okay, when people were much more traditionalist about these topics. And of course, back then, there wasn't much scope for gay people to live out their sexuality in a healthy manner. And so, of course, the two things, sexual vice and homosexuality, were conflated, especially since the Catholic doctrine was very against this sort of behavior. Nowadays, it can be just being promiscuous, having some kind of deviancy, but we're talking about extreme cases. If this card represents somebody who's gay, usually I've found that this person is gay but doesn't live their identity in a positive way. And of course, this could apply to straight people as well. And the other important meaning, which probably in a daily context is more common, is that of lack of love. So love, lack of love, or disturbed love, or unhealthy love. So it could represent great disappointments that really hurt us inside. So of course, if it comes up in a love reading between you and your partner, there is no love left between you. Okay, this one is easy. Reversed, traditionally, the meaning is the same, except that it tends to represent help and friendship expressed in a more material way. So it could be a recommendation that somebody writes you, or a doctor's help to heal an illness. And of course, if we're taking it as a person card, as a friend, this one could be a friend in trouble because it's reversed. But usually it's a positive card. It's a card of material help. Okay, reversed, the falsehood card is very positive. It can represent relief. It can represent negative situations that improve, and so we sort of sigh with relief, and things start looking up. Or often when there are people scheming against us, or when we are scheming something, this card represent the uncovering of lies. And usually it's in a positive sense. So of course, when we are lied to, it's never positive. But usually when this card comes up, it represents that we find out in time so that we can avoid the trouble. So it's a positive card. And finally, we have the sick man or sick person reversed. If it's surrounded by positive card, it can be positive. It could represent the end of an illness, for instance, but usually it's more on the negative side. It is symbolic of situations that are stuck, that don't move on, that don't progress. Okay, situations of blockage. Okay, but if this card is preceded by negative cards and followed by positive cards, then it indicates the end of trouble, the end of a problematic situation. Whereas, of course, if it's preceded by positive cards and followed by negative cards, then it shows that the situation is getting worse. Okay, so that was it for today with the fours, and I'll see you next time with the fives.